Hi, how are you today? This is a Sunday. It's the 26th of November, 2023. This is the Everybody Community Podcast. It's the Save the World podcast. And we're talking about currently, I've been sharing little snippets of information that I've found or opinions of mine about the situation in Gaza. Since the October 7th military action by the Hamas soldiers, um, I think their main reason to go into Israel was to get some um, hostages so that they could bargain, get some of their people back, get some maybe get some action by Israel, by the IDF, so that things could be maybe a little bit more equal. Because as you know, Israel and its soldiers have completely dominated and controlled and really persecuted the Palestinian people, the entire group of Palestinian people living in the Gaza Strip. I understand it's 25 miles by 25 miles long by 5 miles wide. It's a very small area, very concentrated area, the very, very high unemployment. After the invasion, the military invasion by Hamas into the Israeli territory, the Israeli government decided to shut off the water, shut off the electricity. I guess it's been a long time. They don't really let people out or in. They didn't really let any supplies in. So these people, they need food. So it wants to kind of punish them. Um, this is kind of a different thing than maybe most people would do. So the point I want to make here is that when we're dealing with the Israeli leadership, the people who make the decisions militarily, these are the people that are pretty much in control. Like Netanyahu, for example, he wants to change the law so that he has more power, so he can do anything he wants. The judicial branch, it's supposed to be equal, right? But in Israel, Netanyahu is working to change that. Israeli people marching in the streets by the thousands and thousands saying, no, you can't do that. We don't want you to have that much power. Why not? They don't trust the guy. And now, from after maybe we could say October 8th until today, November 26th, Netanyahu and his soldiers. Now, you got to remember, soldiers are in an environment, they're kind of in a brainwashed environment. All the Israelis are not, and especially not all the Jewish diaspora is not, only some. But these Israeli soldiers, these IDF soldiers, these guys are pretty much, their information is controlled, and they're in an environment like any group of soldiers you might find anywhere in the world. They are kind of brainwashed and they're mind controlled and they're living in a culture of hate. And this goes for pretty much any military in the world, especially the ones that you see most active, the American military and the Israeli military. And right now, I think maybe the Ukrainians and the Russians are maybe in a similar headspace to where they hate people that they don't know, and they hate them so much, and they live in this world of hate to the point to where it's okay to torture, burn alive, kill, starve, whatever you want, because these people are not human beings. They become animals. Now, this is one of the leaders of the Israeli military said about the people of Gaza. Now, can you understand calling them animals? What does that imply? What does that say? What does that say about the Israeli mentality, the IDF mentality? Like, once again, not all the Israelis. We've got Israelis that are marching in the streets against the siege on Gaza, which is literally a genocide by every dictionary definition. It's the worst genocide that's ever occurred. while this is happening, there are a lot of Israelis that are in the streets saying, no, not in my name. And the diaspora of Jewish people, like the Jewish Voice for Peace, are very active about trying to explain, look, I'm a Jewish person, but I don't believe in genocide. This is not something that I support. You know, of course, they have their religion, they've got their culture, they've got their support for Israel, but they don't have support for a war crime Israel. But some people do. So these IDF soldiers that have been murdering and slaughtering uh, the people of Gaza now for over a month, what they're doing is uh, acting out an extreme ideology. And this ideology is that we have a right to this land. It's a silly, silly concept. And we're superior. These people are inferior. I had a friend of mine, an Israeli guy, think he was a Mossad agent, but he would probably never admit it. But he said, you know, these people are barbarians. And so if you're raised with this idea, if you're living in a culture where everybody around you has absolutely no consideration or respect, they have no humanity anymore when it comes to anybody really who's not part of their tribe. This is tribal thinking, and this is tribal in the most evil way. So what I'm getting at here, what I want to make very clear is these people, Netanyahu, the Mossad, the IDF, these people are extremely sociopathic. These aren't normal human beings that want to think about what's fair, what's good for humanity, what's the right thing to do here. If you feel that God chose you as a special person and that the world is on your side, or that God, at least God is on your side. Now the world is pretty much totally against Israel, including America. Americans are against this genocide in Israel. The American leadership isn't, because they've been bought, they've been paid for, they've been controlled by the Israeli money and power. And so they've lost every sense of what's right and wrong. And you'll see some of these American leadership saying, look, we're going to stand behind Israel no matter what they do. Well, isn't that a ridiculous idea, especially when Israel is committing genocide? So if you're living in an open air prison, you were born and raised there, and you want to get out, you want to escape, you can't get out, you're being tortured, you're being persecuted, you're being abused every day of your life by living in this hellhole, crashing the gate and grabbing some hostages, not a problem. I would do it. I would do it. I would fight back against your oppressor. And when I explain people my opinion about this incursion, this is like a woman who's being raped for 75 years, which is impossible, but it's an apt analogy, because she's being raped. These Gazans have been being raped. These Palestinians have been being raped and beaten for 75 years. They fight back. So if you can imagine a woman being attacked and she scratches the face of her attacker because she just wants him to get off of her, and she just wants to be free, and she just wants to stop being abused and raped and beaten every day for so many years. So she's fighting back and fighting back. It includes injuring your attacker. And there's everything right about that. There's everything right about fighting back. To injure your attacker, to disable your attacker, to stop your attacker from being able to attack anymore, and doing whatever you can to stop that attacker, because that attacker's been doing that for 75 years, right? So she has every right to do that. So what happened on October 7th was people fighting back against being attacked. Guys in the comfort of their little airplanes that America gave them, dropping bombs on schools, hospitals. Look at the mentality of a of a military that's bombing hospitals. In northern Gaza, I know they bombed at least 22 of the hospitals. Now, if you're a sociopath, you're going to lie, and you're going to say, "No, this was military. This was a military target." But you've got to look at the actions and the behavior and the history of these people that invaded Palestine and created the Nakba back, I think it was 1947, 48. Wholesale slaughter, terrorizing. They blew up the King David Hotel. They killed British there. And they said it was somebody else that did it, but we know who did it. No action was taken against them. So the mentality of someone who says, "Oh, I feel bad about every civilian death." Netanyahu says that, he feels bad about every civilian death. But at the same time, if you watch his actions, he slaughtered 6,000 children. 6,000 children have been slaughtered. These are innocent, defenseless children that he slaughtered. I think it's up to maybe 13,000 or 14,000 total people that have been slaughtered. Now, these are people that have absolutely no way to protect themselves. These aren't military people that have tanks and, airplanes. They don't even have an airport. They haven't had an airport in Gaza ever, I think. So Palestine used to have an airport. Palestine used to have a train system. But when they were invaded by Zionists, under the guise of, the Jewish people need a homeland, which they don't. Jewish people live all over the world happily and safely. It's not about a homeland. It's about a home for terror. And look at what they're doing. Dropping white phosphorus on a schoolyard. So don't listen to what they're saying. Watch what they're doing, because this is how a sociopath functions. They have no care about other people. They have no care. They have no compassion in their heart. They're completely sick. So the people that the Gazans are dealing with, and the people that the rest of the world are dealing with in this situation, they're dealing with inhumane. I'm not going to say they're not human beings, but they're very, very sick human beings. Sociopaths are human beings, but they have a very, very sick mind, so you can't reason with them. And you can't have a normal conversation like, "What do you think is fair?" This is why Palestine doesn't have a state so far, is because they were treating the leaders of Israel, the decision makers, as if they were humane-minded, fair-minded people. They're not. They never have been. From the very beginning of Israel, Israel was started by terrorists, and the leaders of Israel are terrorists. But what do? They say, "Oh, the Palestinians are terrorists, so we don't want to destroy human life." But if you look at what they're doing, you have to look at what they're actually doing. We offered land. No, they didn't. They stole land. Look at all the land that they've stolen from Palestinians. Now, these are supposed to be rational, humane people that we can trust and that we can negotiate with. And they've leveled 40% of Gaza by bombing attacks. They've leveled this whole area, completely destroyed it. Is that something that a humane, reasonable, fair group of people would do? No. Murdering in cold blood 6,000 innocent children. Is that something that a fair and humane people that you can negotiate with and work with would do? No. These are mass murderers. These are terrorists. It's all war crimes. It's all genocide. Just look up the definitions of these words and listen to the people that are humanitarian, what they say about what's been going on. So don't think that these people can be reasoned with. Now, if you have a crazy man in the street with a gun, or like it happened in America, I think he had a rake and he was on the freeway. The American police just killed him. They just killed him. But most countries won't do that. The IDF will do that. They'll do that to any Palestinian. They'll plant a weapon on him if there wasn't a weapon. So they just blow people away. They just shoot them dead. But what most governments will do, what most police will do, is they'll find a way to wrestle this guy to the ground, get that weapon out of his hand, and get him in a place, in a situation where he's not going to hurt people anymore because he's obviously nuts. So I'm not recommending the death of anybody, not, of course, not anyone in Gaza, and of course, not any of the IDF or the Mossad. But they should be held accountable. And how do you hold someone accountable? Well, you disarm them so they can't hurt anybody anymore. So they can't torture anymore. So they don't have that power anymore. You identify them, and then you disarm them. But you don't torture and kill them. That's what they do. That's what a sociopath does. They just mow people down. They mow the lawn. Now, does that sound like a humane group of people? Does that sound like a group of people that you can communicate with, that you can negotiate with, that you can have some kind of affair? No, you don't negotiate with the guy who's, getting ready to kill his wife and children and then kill himself. You take him out. How do you take him out? You prevent him from being able to kill, whatever that would require. But you don't murder the guy in cold blood. But you do make the world safe. So that's what we need to do. We need to make the world safe from Israel. The Israeli military, not the peaceful Israeli people who just want a happy life and they don't hate anybody, but the people that are causing the problem. You disarm them. You don't let them hurt anymore. And you put them in a situation to where they can't further hurt anybody. And sometimes that can take some real force to do that. But you don't negotiate with terrorists, because what? Their motivation is not to solve a problem. Their motivation is to sadistically commit genocide over an entire 2.3 million group of people. That's what the intention is. The intention is to punish in a sadistic way. And if you look at everything they're doing, bombing hospitals, bombing schools, destroying all the buildings, just bombing the heck out of the whole northern part of Gaza and some of the southern part of Gaza too, where people are supposed to be safe. They're supposed to be able to run. Don't negotiate with these terrorists. You can't negotiate with them. The thing you have to do is disarm them, prevent them from doing any more murder, doing any more killing. Because now for over a month, the world has sat and watched what Gaza is going through and done nothing about it. Well, I've had it happen in my life a couple of times where I was on the street and I saw a man beating a woman. The way I was raised is you just stop him. You don't think about your own safety. It's not about being a hero or anything like that. It's about protecting that woman who's getting beaten when everyone else around is standing and watching. This happened in Malaysia, and this happened to me in China as well. And it's happened similar things in other places. San Francisco, there was a guy on a bus trying to rob a guy who was half asleep sitting in front of him, trying to steal the guy's wallet out of his pocket. Everybody just watched. They didn't do anything. But I told that guy, look, I'm not going to let this happen. And he got off the bus at the next stop. This is what we have to do. We have to have a conscience and we have to take action. And after this bloody attack is over. The people who ran this, the people who supported this, and I'm talking about the Netanyahu administration and his military people, and I'm talking about the Biden himself, and the people that supported this genocide in Israel, they all have to be held accountable. And you know what you do with people that are terrorists? It's not pretty. They're held accountable, like the Nuremberg trials. This is what needs to happen. This is my opinion about what's going on. Thanks for listening. See you next time.